Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Totally Indian Football Show with me, your host Siju, and today I have very fun person on the show. You may probably, if you meet her, you will probably say she's a athlete. You know that's what she does. She's a player, which she is, but that's not what she does for a living. It's not a career path. What she does is that she's a lawyer, sports lawyer. Makes sure that things are in place for probably the athletes that she represents or the work that she does. Pragati Banka is my guest on the latest episode. And Pragati, thank you so much from a small meetup to finally getting you as my guest on the show. See, that was a trick. That was
Yeah,
actually the trick, to get
yeah,
you on the show. Thank you so much for joining in, and hope you are looking forward to as much as I am looking forward to this
yeah.
conversation. So, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, Siju. I'm really looking forward to this fun conversation that I'm sure will lead to some great insights from you as well.
Okay, let's get on to that.
Yeah,
You also work currently are working with Meraki Sports and Entertainment Agency. Now, when I mentioned to my friends about Meraki, they're like, "It's the food place, right?" I'm like, "Yes, it is a food place, but what I'm talking about is not a food place. There is a sports and entertainment agency." So take us before we dive into what you do currently. Can you take us through what's why where do you start kind of a thing, and how did you end up probably choosing sports law as something that you said, okay, this is what I want to do, because you still are very close to the sport, right? You play, you are still
yeah,
active, so I'm sure you also had some kind of playing journey, and then probably that translated on to the career path that you took. So take us through probably memory lane for you to go down and share something from there.
yeah. So I come from Rourkela in Orissa. The Hockey World Cup was recently hosted there. And like right now, we know Orissa government is doing really great in sport. But unfortunately, when I was growing up, when I was in school, there wasn't those many opportunities for us, especially women. Like we used to see our guy friends going to play sport, and I come from an all girls convent school, so we had dance, drama, all cultural activities, but sport was very non-existent. And when I moved to Pune for my law school, is when I was given the entire platform. Like I used to play badminton as a kid, I used to play with my friends every day. But college, law school, Symbiosis Law School was where I got the opportunity to experiment. Like I played volleyball, that's where I started playing football, I started doing athletics. So sport for me properly came into my life when I was in college. So, you've seen how a kid gets excited when they find something new. That was me when I was 18. Like sport was very new to me. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's where I started. And I enjoyed what I was studying in whatever I was studying in college. And yeah, towards the end, I figured that okay, law is great. There are multiple opportunities, but where do I see myself fit in best? And I spoke to my mentors, and they actually guided me. My professor from college, that why don't you look out for sport law? Sports law is coming up, and it's a very niche field and very few people are practicing it in India. So, you also have that advantage, especially women. So,
Yeah.
that's where I found out about this field, frankly, from my college. And I'm very glad to have gotten that push. And yeah, then that's when I interned with Meraki. This is actually my second stint here. So, one of my internships, I decided, okay, enough of legal internships. I work with an agency. And yeah, that's where I got the business side of sport, not just law. And it's interesting, like there are so many things to do. People think, what are the careers in sport? You can just be a best player. No, there are 100 things. There's journalism, there's medicine, there's marketing,
Yeah.
there's sponsorship. There are 100 things to be done. And yeah,
Yeah.
that's all. That's when I knew that this is my calling. And sooner or later, after I get a basic foundation in law, I will make the switch. And I got that opportunity last year, and I just took that leap of faith, and I'm here now.
Great. Also, like you mentioned, you probably first did internship with Meraki, and now you are on a higher role. So, what did you learn between the internship that you did and until now that you've backed this role?
Right. So when I was interning with Meraki, that time I was helping with talent management and some of content with the retainers. But now when I've come back with my legal experience that I bring in from the past 4 years from litigation. So my role description has completely changed. Like earlier, I was just doing content marketing, not legal work. But right now, I'm doing contracts. We manage athletes like Rahul Dravid, Deepa Karmakar, Rohan Bopanna. So, we ensure that all their brand contracts are tied. And also, the other new space that I have gotten into, like I used to also think sport is excellence. But what I've learned when I've joined here and I've been close to them is sport is much beyond that. Like how you and I have played sport or been associated with sport, we've learned things like teamwork, dealing with losses, leadership. That's a different
Yeah.
side that I have gotten personally involved in, which we are trying to create awareness about. So that's a big change from my internship days to where I am right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick your brains on basically how you spent the 4 years in the middle, right, from your internship to until now. So probably to us laypersons or the ones who are out there who are not highly educated like you to understand all these terminologies that you threw at us. So if you can tell us what exactly went down in those 4 years when you mentioned litigation, and and how did you spend that, and your learnings from there. Then first start with, like, breaking down for us what exactly you did.
Yeah. So right after I graduated, I joined a senior advocate in Delhi. And senior advocate's job day to day was just arguing. Like they had 4 5 matters in a day across multiple courts. So my job was mostly to assist Mr. Nair. And the day was like, if he had 5 different matters and every matter had like a hearing, each petition would be 100 to 200 pages with documents. And there are 5 matters like that. So he obviously does not have the time to go through everything, right? So our job was to ensure we create a summary with the relevant documents, and he argues from our notes and whatever we brief him, like, this document is important in that. It was hectic. Those were 20. We worked 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. My first day of practice, I was told that forget your birthdays, forget Sundays, forget Diwali, New Year. If you want to survive in this profession, forget vacations, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah.
And yeah, that was a big challenge, to be honest, but it's fine. That's what I signed up for. And yeah, it was very hectic. Sundays were also working because Monday we had hearings, and that's how it went on for 2 to 2.5 years. And I couldn't play. Like I used to play 3 sports in college, but right after that, gone. 2 years, just walking. The only physical activity I did was run around in courts with the files. That's it. Otherwise, you're just on your desk drafting, and it's a lot of reading,
Yeah.
a lot of screen time as well.
Yeah.
So that took a toll, not just on my physical health but mental health as well,
Yeah.
because you feel burnout, right? There is no outlet for you to relax because there's no time. And
Yeah.
last year of litigation is I was working in a small chamber with a Supreme Court advocate, and they had a very nice work like hours policy. After 7 p.m., go home. If you
Hmm.
have work, do it from home. But after 7, office is shut. So that's when I got the opportunity to get back to football, and I started playing again. And yeah, and that's when I realized that okay, sport is something I cannot really skip, and I moved to sport again. But to this is an interesting thing, like which I felt in my personal opinion when I was going to court. It felt like going for a match.
Hmm.
You prepare,
Yeah.
you go appear against another opponent,
Yeah.
an opposing team, and like a referee, there's a judge. They
Yeah.
can go like whichever side, you never know. And also, no matter how well you perform, you can always be outperformed by the other side.
Yeah.
So that the pre-game jitters were very similar to what I felt before a hearing, and that was the biggest common thing for me in litigation and sport. But yeah, last 1 year of playing football while practicing law made me realize how important work-life balance is.
Right.
It's really not healthy
Yeah.
to work like that, where you're working 7 days a week with no off. And it's not very like spoken about in our profession of how the work hours are really bad. But yeah, you have to do what you have to do. I'm very happy with my decision of leaving litigation and moving to sport because it's fun. Like if you love what you do, you don't feel like you're working.
Hmm. Now, when you spend the time there and you mentioned that you were arguing on cases and stuff, did that involve any kind of cases that involve sport, or was it like something completely to do with civil and all of the other stuff?
No, no, no. So I was mostly involved in civil and commercial matters.
Okay.
And yeah, sport, I was advising an agency independently at that time, not Meraki.
Mm-hmm.
So I was doing their contracts.
Hmm.
So that was the experience I got in sport, but not through disputes. I've watched matters being argued, but not personally been involved in one
Right. Now,
yet.
yeah. So, is that a good quality for a lawyer to have, or is it a must have quality of, when you mentioned about, and we see courtroom dramas, right? Though it may not be as real as it is, but the whole point of arguing and getting the right out there. So it's called an arguing, right? You're putting your
Yeah.
points forward. So is that, like, personally, are lawyers good at arguing? Is that a must have quality, or it's just an add on thing?
It definitely teaches you of not just an argument of how to engage in a conversation. Like, if someone's putting their opinion across, hear them out.
Yeah.
Don't interject. You'll get your time. You'll get your turn to speak.
Right.
So I think not just lawyers, like I've used that in my personal life as well. You become a good listener, and you don't believe things that are told you. Like if someone just tells me, okay, it's raining outside, I will not believe it until unless I see it. So there are things which we learn in our profession, which definitely help us personally as well. But the key of argument or negotiating, putting your point across,
Mm-hmm.
definitely helps.
Yeah.
And that right now, when we work with brands, we work with clients, we work with athletes, that's when, we have to ensure we speak up for the athletes. We ensure that though their hours are taken care of, those their training hours are taken care of, and they get the right support. So that's where I feel whatever I've learned in my 4 years of practice in Delhi, I use that here to
Mm-hmm.
negotiate and advocate.
Yeah, yeah. And do you remember any particular instance that happened in those 4 years? Either it could be one that you were on the team where you were listening to disputes and there was a case you were probably helping out, or while you were doing your research, you mentioned there's a lot of reading involved, a lot of papers to be written and stuff. So, were there anything that you remember closely? Any funny incident or something that really caught you off guard, or maybe a good incident that a memory that you always will probably you remember that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, so I worked on a domestic violence matter in Delhi
Mm-hmm.
for one of India's rappers. He's pretty famous in Bollywood.
Okay.
And initially, like, I thought domestic violence, I can't be, working for someone who's hit their wives. I
Yeah.
just can't. Principles, right? Although in profession we are taught not to say a brief, no to a brief. But in my head, I thought, no, 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 this is not something I would want to do as a person. But of course, I was naive. I was just 2 years into practice, and I thought, okay, no, I'm not doing it. But when I went through the evidence, the documents, is when I realized, okay, there's a good case. Everything is not as it seems. And that was the first time I was closely working with a celebrity who has a great fan following. And what we saw was completely different. Like that's when I realized people on stage and people in real life can be very different.
Mm-hmm.
They know how to work the crowd, they know what the fans want. That's what they are on stage. They might not be the same in their personal life,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And working on that matter also gave me a good perspective. Funny incidents as well. For like how we mentioned, we worked 16, 20 hours.
Yeah.
And me and my colleagues, we forgot to eat. Like we were sitting and working from 2 p.m. with the client. And this was 1 a.m. and we didn't realize, and we were just drafting because we had to file something the next morning.
Hmm.
And he asks us that, don't you guys want to eat something? Like, aren't you guys hungry? I haven't seen you eat a single
Yeah.
fiber. And he ordered food for the entire team and, made sure we are also well fed while we are working.
Mm-hmm.
You would not expect that. Like, generally, people think, oh, it's a big client. We have to take care of them, host them, make sure they have everything. But it was the other way around. He ensured we were comfortable. We were equipped, fueled enough to work.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, that was a big experience for me to work like that because there's a lot of media coverage around it. How to not let that affect you, how to be in that position where people will approach you, ask you for details. You know, what's happening? Did he do it? Did he not do it? What's going on? How to stay away from that.
yeah.
Yeah, that was a great learn. That was the biggest learning I've learned,
Great.
which is helping me right now working with athletes.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's exactly. I mean, I'm glad that we had this conversation of, trying to take you back in especially those 4 years before we start and dive into what you do currently, because that's a good segue also. And as you mentioned time and again, that how those 4 years shaped you, made you better at what you do, and that's exactly why you can do what you are doing with Meraki at this point, right? When you mention things like, it's not always the fact that you're serving, you could also be served by them. The other aspect is, trying to get your standing for your players. That's exactly what you do with your clients if you had to fight a case. So all of these things are also playing out here now. When you move to an agency, how different it is, if there is any difference, and what was your first day here like with Miraki?
Yeah. So if I'm comparing change from litigation to Meraki, biggest change was I came from a conflicted approach of things. Like, you know, when you're working on a case, you're always trying to test the other side, make it difficult for them. But working in an agency, we are working with multiple parties and it's a very collaborative effort.
Yeah,
We are not out to get each other.
right.
So that was a big unlearning process for me to, you know, not everyone's out to take money off you. Not everyone's trying to scam you.
Yeah,
That's how we were in litigation. That's how the cases we dealt with. But now the transactions I'm working on, we ensure that the brands also get what they need. The athlete also gets what they need. So it has to work for everyone. So it's a collaborative which helps everyone approach. It was very different. I'm still learning. I think I'm still in the process of unlearning that and relearning what to do. Apart from that, biggest change I feel has been sleep. I'm able to sleep. I think that's a big change. Catching up on sleep, which also affects your productivity. Like if you don't get enough rest, how do you expect your brain to work at its capacity, right?
yeah,
Yeah, and yeah, working with a sport agency, like we go play from office weekly. You know, we have football games, badminton games. Today we are going for a badminton game, so it's completely different working in a law firm and working with an agency. Completely different. I hope I'm capturing what you wanted me to answer.
yeah, 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 absolutely. I think, yeah, I mean, the biggest difference being that what you just stated out, right? So now take us through like your day-to-day work. How does it look like at Miraki? And when you say you closely work with athletes or the brands that you guys support and work closely with, how crucial is your role when it comes to there, and how has the conversations with these players, right? I know I'm kind of clubbing too many points in one, but you can probably choose which one, like, according to you, will suffice all my questions that I have. So, from your interactions with your players, what have you learned? And also, do you had like a picture that you can frame? What's your understanding now with the whole sports system in terms of law? Where are we at this point with our athletes or with the brands that we work? And is it a friendly environment in a way that, is it something that players understand what they are, putting pen to paper and stuff like that? How is the knowledge wise, how are they like?
So my day to day here at Meraki, so I'm the in-house legal resource here. I look at contracts, not just for my. So I work with a talent management team and
Hmm.
the sports CSR advisory
Yeah.
vertical. So in addition to athletes' contracts that we vet, we I also work with digital content team or the experiences team
Hmm.
or the sponsorships team where there are transactions that they're closing, right? So every transaction needs a document,
Right.
and so yeah, contracts. Apart from that, communications, because we get a lot of incoming briefs. We are also doing outreach for our players,
Yeah.
PR, brands, incoming. So, like for example, if an athlete is going for a shoot, you know how many hours will they be? Therefore, who will be covering the costs? What if you go beyond the hours?
Yeah.
How much content can you use for how long? How much usage rights? A lot of IP comes into picture. Is everything confidential or not? So yeah, so these things we have to ensure when we're speaking to brands as well from the athlete side. Apart from that, what I do here is we have been working with this organization called Sports and Society Accelerator.
Mm-hmm.
It's a NGO, it's a Section 8 company, which is working in the policy advisory sector,
Okay.
where we work with government institutions, federations, and other organizations
Right.
to use sport for social change.
Nice.
Like, we always think about sport for excellence,
Yeah.
but sport for development is a very niche field
Yeah.
in India.
Yeah.
So, sport is a vehicle to use to uplift society, like, say, women empowerment, inclusivity, livelihood generation. So that's where Meraki comes in to help SSA create that awareness through our communications and campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
So I assist with that. And from the CSR bit, we also work with Wellspin Group, where we are under the Wellspin Super Sports Women program. We support athletes, women athletes, existing elite athletes as well, and also upcoming athletes, where their training and stay equipment, everything is supported by the Wellspin Group. So it's not just restricted to legal, it's a lot of communications and athlete management, client servicing. Yeah, so it's not as monotonous and restricted to just, doing legal contracts. It's a mix of content, social media, managing people, managing accounts, mix of that. What was the second leg of your question, if
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can?
So the second part of the point was, what have you gathered, from your interaction with the players that you guys represent, with regards to their knowledge about, what they're signing into or what they're getting themselves into, whether it's
Yeah.
regards to club that they want to sign, whether it's about a brand perspective. So what are their questions like, or how has your rapport and conversations with them been like?
Honestly, if it comes to contracts, athletes completely depend on their team. I'll
Right.
be very frank with you. It's very rare that you will find an athlete who actually understands what they're signing. Either their coach or here us as managers, we'll be the ones vetting it for them.
Mm-hmm.
So if we talk about legal awareness, legal knowledge awareness of athletes, there's a huge gap,
Yeah.
right? Which I think needs to be filled. So what we do is, we ensure that we tell the athletes what they're signing. If there's a change in contract from the previous year to this year, we ensure we tell them that, this is what you're signing up for now. Are you okay with it or not?
Mm-hmm.
So questions rarely come from their end.
Yeah.
It's mostly us updating them.
Right.
Few handful have come up with questions. Okay, what about this? What about that? But legal awareness is really lacking, which I think we need to fill in.
Mm-hmm.
Is where I come in. Like we
Yeah.
ensure. So right now, when we tell the athletes that we also have a lawyer in our team, it brings in another factor for them to trust the entire managing team. Right? We have lawyers
Yeah.
and we have managers who are ensuring their commercials are looked after.
Yeah, yeah. And do you think there's a responsibility, like in agencies in general, even the one Meraki or all the other agencies who are trying to do good and support the athletes in all these ways, right? Because we want our athletes to focus on one thing, which is what they do best on the field, and not be worried about all of these
Right.
stuff. But when you mentioned about the lack of awareness, I think this is something a common thing. When I had an episode with a sports agent in the past, even with Srini, another lawyer who we've had, I think these are common things that even they've pointed out, saying that yeah, there is a lack of awareness. So, do you see a
Yeah.
responsibility for agencies like yours and the others out there to not just come in and fill in the gap for them, but also probably give them a kind of a, not a course wise, but also just give them some kind of knowledge and some kind of feeling, say okay, when you get and when you don't have immediate access to us, you should know basics at least,
Yeah.
where when to call us, when to call your lawyer. You kind of realize that, like we call the red flags these days, identify those red flags. So do you feel that also an added responsibility for agencies like yours? And how far are we, in giving an input on that bit?
Yeah. I feel that is very crucial to what we do as agencies because we try to do that. So we have quarterly calls with our athletes where we ask them also for feedback, and we have these shows where we consult with them, where we teach them not just about law, but also how to deal with media, how to tackle with such situations because we can't physically be available every time.
Right.
We are always there, but
Yeah.
like you mentioned, what if we aren't?
Yeah.
So, of course, there is a big responsibility that we as their managers, agents, have to ensure that we, live up to.
Yeah.
And that's a big point. It's a very good point that you've brought up. It's not just filling that gap, but also aiding them on how to be self-sufficient,
Yeah.
right? So we do mention like, these are the things you should just look out for, like, something like termination or usage rights. We mention like just have a look before you sign anything.
Hmm.
Like we recently have worked on an assignment where we had to get 60 people to sign some contracts, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And we were expecting that it will take us at least 3 4 weeks to get everyone's signatures. Siju, you won't believe, out of 60, 58 people sent the signed contract within 15 minutes. It's
Wow.
impossible. And the only two people who didn't sign the contract were lawyers. So, that
Okay.
just that showed me how this marketing or entertainment industry, not just sport in general,
Yeah.
works. People don't realize they're just signing things because they see an opportunity,
Yeah.
and that's how people get exploited.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
So it's very important to know your rights. It's very important to know what to look out for. The red flags that you mentioned, it's key.
Hmm. Now, for somebody listening to this episode, right, for whether they're an athlete, they're upcoming athletes, when is that crucial time for athletes to sign up? Because I think these days, when the young ones are looking up at their idols and their players, the exposure that the upcoming athletes have is extensive, right? It's all the flashy lifestyle that you see, and you don't get to see the hard work or the effort that all the players have put in. So they're like, okay, at the youngest age, when an agent or an agent comes in and they're like, okay, let me just sign, I want an agent. And the next big thing, they want a branded, whatever brand, association with brands. So for what is like a crucial age? Is there like a category or a criteria that you guys as an agency kind of have when you rope in players, or is it very flexible and open, and then you kind of you have a mix of upcoming and established
Frankly,
athletes?
what when we look out for athletes, when we're scouting, shortlisting potential athletes that we could maybe sign, we always look for a story, like who's come out of challenges, who's gone through barriers and broken all of them. Because that's when it's easier. Like if a brand approaches, it's easier to tell. Like one of the archer athletes that we have, she used to travel 40 kilometers every day just to train in Chhattisgarh.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the stories like we look for, and because that's when we feel they need the support. They need someone to speak for them, create that brand, because their focus is just on the pitch, right?
Yeah.
But they don't realize how inspirational they are,
Yeah.
how what their stories can do. You can't always have numbers for the impact that they've done. For example, Neeraj Chopra came back with a gold medal.
Yeah.
You can't really assess the numbers impact, but you know the motivation it's given to people that okay, you can do it.
Yeah.
No one else had done it in this sport.
Yeah.
So, frankly, I think age-wise, it's tough to put a bracket.
Yeah.
But when you're moving on from just teens to an adult,
Mm-hmm.
that's where I think you should trust someone, find someone who you believe has your best interests
Right.
and just does not look at it just as a commercial transaction, but who believes in your growth as an athlete,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So that's something to look out for because you will also always find people who will try to exploit you, for your brand image that I'll get you this, I'll get you sponsorships, I'll get you that.
Yeah.
But no, you also have to think what are their interests, what are they trying to do here.
Yeah.
It's not just getting money, it's what name are you building for yourself, what associations you're having. So that's key. Wherever you sign, with whichever agency, understand the vision that they have for you.
Mm-hmm.
It can't just be money,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So that's something which we believe in. Whenever we speak to an athlete, we tell them our plan, what we want to do next 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and then if they align with what we feel, it's a win-win.
Yeah, just like you kind of shared with us the anecdotes from the 4 years that you spent in litigation. Now, I would like to pick your brains in the years that you spent now, that you spend time with speaking to players, different organizations, and not just athletes that you have. You have different set of group of companies or organizations, and also certain IPs that you guys have already formed. So, what has the journey or conversations, that anything that you would like to highlight, that kind of remember that you remember, funny, not so funny, something that took you by surprise, anything that you would like to share?
So this was a very funny and ironic, in a way, incident that I would like to talk about. So this was an appearance that one of our athletes was
Mm-hmm.
called, and they were basically trying to show, the brand was trying to show how now they're very inclusive, and they respect persons with disabilities, right? That's what they were trying to show through that
Mm-hmm.
event. And one of our athletes was invited, and one of our para athletes.
Yeah.
So Meraki is the first agency to commercially represent para athletes in India. So I was in this was in Delhi, and I was also there. So I went as their manager, and I was just into Meraki. So how do you think of a player manager agent? You went full suited up, formals,
Yes.
right? So I'm very excited. I walk in, and I see that they've built a stage where our athlete's supposed to come up on the panel,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no ramp.
Yeah.
So that's the irony, right? You're trying to show you're very inclusive. That's why you've done all of
Yeah.
this. But if you think about it, there's no empathy, right? You've invited someone, you've invited an athlete, you've done your research. Most basic thing, put a ramp.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I asked that, how do you plan to get the athlete on stage? And they said give us some time, and they asked if they can manually move from the wheelchair to the chair.
Hmm.
And I said, nothing
Yeah.
doing, not happening. I don't care if the event gets delayed by an hour. You are not lifting the
Yeah.
athlete.
Yeah.
Right? And this was a press conference, and there was a lot of media already seated out there. So I told them that, if you really do this, do you want the media to capture what you're doing?
Yeah.
you know. So it delayed the event by an hour. They fixed it in front of everyone, all guests arrived. But yeah, that was a great learning for me also now as a manager, to ensure when we go
Hmm.
for these events, we check these
Yeah.
things. We always do, and sometimes it's also understood like this will be there. You
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
think they would not do it. So that was funny and ironical in its way, that how sometimes people say, okay, we are very inclusive, we support them, we support LGBTQ, we support them, but it's all for the social media and brownie points, not in
Right.
reality.
Yeah, I think what you crucially mentioned, that it's not wrong to think that okay, this should be taken care of, or it doesn't strike you that okay, or I should have checked earlier. But like you said, yes, it's a learning, and you have now a checklist even from your end when you now take your athletes, irrespective
Yeah.
of what they are. But that's actually quite sad that they probably even suggested saying lifting the athlete. I'm like, seriously, like. I mean, I thought it was a joke, but yeah, it's like it's so funny. But I think,
No, they meant it
yeah,
exactly.
but also the fact that they actually made everything, they sorted out everything in front of everyone there, whether whatever, whoever the
Yeah.
guest was. I think that's for finally they put athletes first. They forgot to put it
Yeah.
initially, but they made a statement there saying, okay, you can wait. Now we are getting some things done because we failed at one point, and
Yeah.
now let me just rectify on that. So yeah, great. Pragati, thank you so much. I know you have a badminton match coming up, so I don't want to delay further of your or be the obstacle between your work life balance. But thank you so much for doing this. I'm sure the listeners had fun. I hope it was fun for you, and I didn't fumble too much with my questions.
Same here, same here. I hope I didn't go off topic in between because tend to ramble. But thanks for having me, Siju. It was a great chat. It's always great chatting with you, and I hope to see you soon.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, for sure. And thank
yeah,
you so much once again. And yes, from our first meeting in Bangalore to now, this has been fun. I hope we continue to chat online and offline as well. So, to all the lovely
yeah,
listeners, I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, please do follow it with your friends. And if you are an upcoming sports lawyer and you want to kind of get into this field, I think you can reach out to Pragati. She's pretty cool that way. I just had to message her, can we meet? And she said yes. And see, that's where I get a new guest on my show as well. So, feel free to reach out to her. She's available on LinkedIn, Instagram, so you can slide into DMs. Pragati, once again, thank you so much for doing this, amidst all the work
yeah.
that you had to do. And yeah, enjoy the badminton game and hope to catch you soon as well.
Thank you. Thanks, Siju. Thanks to the entire team.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
thank
To
you.
all the lovely listeners, this was me, Siju, with Pragati Banka, who shared all her journey and all about what she does and what she's doing now. To all of you, please do follow, subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. We are available on all the leading audio platforms. And this is me signing off until next time. Cheers.